even in this light spectrum, we're seeing, listen, this camera is only reflecting the light that it's picking up. And dust would do that. Now people say, well, what was that in the steel frame? Well, I think it's what the camera is seeing.
Right. Well, what else can the camera see? And what are we seeing here? You know, what is this big, just wild stuff, man.
What's that? That was that one object we were trying to figure out. Look at that sucker. Look at the luminosity of that.
Right down here, yeah.
Oh, no, the one, but look at his partner above.
This one.
Right here. There, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we haven't looked at SECCHI because we've been terrified of it, and now that we're coming back to it again and looking at it, we can see a lot of stuff we weren't seeing in the fall. I'll tell you that.
Look at this.
This thing is just, it was showing up. We could see the electrical signature of it, and you usually don't see that in the background field, right?
No.
Wow, we got a lot of stuff going on out here. But look at how bright Venus is, too, though. Even in this spectrum, it's showing super bright.
It's just amazing what's going on with that planet.
It really is. And then, you know, we expected Earth to come around the mountain, and here we are, right?
There we are.
Everything's working like design. Now, here's a story from the BBC where we're talking about that ice crack in the Antarctic base, and we're seeing a lot of huge ice cracks in Antarctica, aren't we, Wayne?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. You know what we're not hearing, Steve? And maybe the subscribers are out there could listen and find out. You know, the thing about Antarctica, it has 2 active volcanoes. So underneath the ice, and I'm just curious, are we seeing that as a result of volcanization that's melting the ice from beneath up as opposed to, you know, top down?
I'm with you.
I mean, I just try to think that if you injected a much more warmer current, I mean, I wouldn't think you wouldn't need more than 2 or 3 degrees to change the ambient temperature.
Right. I don't think that this is a temperature change from the surface. I think
no, I do not either. I don't.
Because otherwise, what I would be seeing is I would see this base sinking in water.
Yeah.
Now, common sense, everybody. Let's just put your brain on for a second. But the ice is cracking, and they do see that it is melting from below. That's what's going on in Antarctica. We know that's a fact.
Okay, so let's carry this out to the next step. If we have, since we know most solar systems are binary star systems, right?
Right.
Let's say that we're reaching perigee here, that this, or maybe it has friends coming in from the southern part of the ecliptic plane.
Okay.
Well, Antarctica would begin to feel that effect before the North Pole would be, right?
Right.
I would think.
Yes.
And I think this is why we continue to see throughout the Sumatra, the whole Indonesia, all the way down to New Zealand. I think what we're seeing is, listen, I'll just put this out there. I think we're beginning to see it unzip.
Yeah, and you're seeing the depth at very, very low kilometers, right? 10, 20, 10 to 50, kind of in that range. And again, that would indicate to me that something's pulling above this region, pulling it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think that's eventually where we're going to see the South Pole.
That's where I think too.
I'm just saying it. You know?
That's all. I'm just agreeing with you, man. But anyway, we're going to make this paper available today on Google Drive again, like we did yesterday, Wayne. And I'm just going to go to the conclusion. You guys go read the paper for yourself. I'm not going to read it to you. But we really do believe that we can show and demonstrate an artificial light source on a sun simulator, okay? And this light source cannot be natural because of the 7 straight lines in its outline. This is the astrophysicist talking, not Steve Olson. It is interesting, though, that because most sun simulators are hexagonal, because we've studied so many, this one is heptagonal. In conclusion, there are many anomalies being seen all over the world showing that we are no longer living in a normal world, but one that has been invaded by artificial devices. These devices have a purpose, and that purpose seems to be to hide the truth about the natural objects that we would most likely be able to see if these artificial devices were not in the way. And I'm going to leave this paper linked so that you can go download the paper and read it for your own self.
Well, you know, I want to point out something too. Back in '99, when I lived in Austin, I attended a conference that I remember Bill Gates was at. And back then, they were talking about deploying like 4,000 satellites that where they could then begin to bring free internet and what have you. I'm almost convinced that that technology is being deployed by DARPA, that probably developed it probably somewhere in the 80s, 90s. That DARPA, once they got the proof of concept in the labs done, that they began to deploy those systems. And I'm convinced that that's pretty much what we're looking at, Steve.
Yeah, and all of this stuff, you know, again, I believe is all for us to see the effects of what's going on with this approaching system and try to make predictions about weather and all that kind of stuff. And so what I wanted to leave everybody with today, though, is I wanted to take a look at the coronal hole one more time and just kind of look at it in the multi-spectrum here. The composite is my favorite. And I just wanted to show you this one. If you haven't looked at this recently, holy Jesus, look at this dark hole in the sun.
So I continue to see this, Steve, when we look at these pictures from SDO. Maybe it's just me, but it seems to me that the northern cap is now a permanent coronal hole. And I'm seeing the same thing in the South Pole as well.
Yeah, yep, same thing here. So I'm seeing the same thing here.
So why aren't we talking about it? That's not normal, or at least. All right, let me retract that. I don't know what normal is, but it just seems to be odd that now it's permanent.
Again, I'm not an expert in the sun, but I do know that I know enough about the coronal holes to know that we've increased dramatically in the size and the severity of the coronal holes in the last year. And again, this all just kind of points to we're being affected by outside influences on the Earth. I do believe that they're mitigating them with technology as best that they can. But the thing that I think we're missing in this too is what's going on Earth, what is going on in our hearts, what is going on in news, and how is it connecting to all the things that people are doing on the Earth. And I don't think people look at that close enough.
I can assure you they don't.
So Wayne and I are talking about actually starting a news channel that will actually discuss just that, trying to connect all those things together. And Wayne, I just wanted to mention that that's something under development right now.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to this, Steve. I think it's going to be an exciting platform that I think that's people have obviously, as we talked about, have written to us and we've heard, and I'm looking forward to it, Steve.
Right. So any last thoughts before we let everybody go today? This is a good update, Wayne. We looked at everything. I think we're seeing the water slowly increasing in temperature every day, just like we predicted during the summer it would. Yeah. But what are your last thoughts?
Well, I believe we are really in an interesting time of where, you know, there is that expression that you can walk on the precipice, and if the slightest jolt happens, right?
Yep.
You're going to tip. Steve, I'm convinced in some cases, and we'll talk more about this as we get into our newsstand channel, is the fact that I think in some cases, my friend, we've tipped across that precipice.
Yeah, I think that we're in the kind of the critical